First up, I want to thank OCD for EDC. That's where I got this idea from. I'm going to link him down into the description. Go check his channel out. He's got a lot of great content, including a lot of Twosun content, taking them apart, doing reviews, among a lot of other different kinds of content. But go check his channel out. I'll link it down below. Also, thanks to Eric_4_EDC for letting me check out some of his knives, including this Koenig Arius. I'm also going to link him down below. Thanks a lot, Eric. Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife, Kara, is at work, and today we are doing a versus video between the Koenig Arius Style 57 and the Twosun Ts129. Now, I know these knives are worlds apart in blade shape and in price, country of origin, so on and so forth. But it's not what this video is really about. I'm not really versing them, saying like, oh, this knife is worth this or this knife isn't worth this. It's more or less just a video about kind of how, I don't know, how awesome Twosun is versus the Koenig Arius, because this is kind of like a staple in precision and quality, fit and finish, all those things. And we are going to compare. I did another video where I compared Twosun versus everything, but I went across the board between so many companies that I didn't get to focus on like one particular thing, and I think this video is going to be a little bit more important. So let's get into it. Okay, so Koenig Arius. This knife is built by Bill Koenig in the United States of America. One guy, one shop, small batches, and it can be pretty expensive, right around the $700–800 range, and then up, used prices might be a little lower, but usually sits right around there and then higher. So, sky's the limit, I guess you could say. Now, like I said, they're made in small batches and they're a little harder to get for that reason. One guy is making them. I'm sure he does lots of CNC work, but then he gets to do a lot of hand work on it as well. Like you can see this hand satin blade. And, when it's one guy doing it, he makes all the decisions. So when you're making all the decisions, if there's something that irritates you, then you get to decide if that changes. And it can make for better quality sometimes. I guess, that's going to be if the people that are buying it, have the same feelings as well. Like say with this one, I found that the flipper tab was a little sharp. The newer version of this fixed that. So little details like that. Now with Twosun, they are made in bigger batches in China by a company. They have a designer, Night Morning Design. And that's just for this one. Obviously, there's lots of other designers depending on which model you get. But then Twosun makes it. And, a lot of the decision making is probably done mostly by Twosun, aside from just the design. But it makes it to where, it's not just one person. It is a team. And then also, you don't really see them change, really. Like, you might see the blade steel change or maybe the handle material change. But you don't really see too much change. So, like, if there's an issue that people are kind of having, then maybe they might, on another knife, not do that. But they're not going to just come out with the newer, improved model. So they might discontinue that model and do another one. At least I haven't seen them really do that. But it is, I guess you'd say a production piece, and, you bid on these. So one reason why these things can be on the lower end of cost, not on quality, on the lower end of cost, is because we make the market. You buy them on eBay and you get to set basically the price. Now, I'm sure Twosun does ghost bid you up a little bit, to make sure that they don't go under what they've put into the knife. But for the most part, you can get these for a range of prices depending on what you're willing to pay and depending on what the other person on the other end of the line bidding on you is willing to pay. So with the Koenig Arius, it's what Bill Koenig put into it, and then his time you know, the time, materials, and, you know, all those things. And he decides the price. One price, that's what he's selling it for. That's what you have to pay. So, you know, the price is definitely a lot higher, but the quality, fit and finish, I don't think is as far apart as that. Now, there's little details that might mean a little bit more to you, like, say, it's made in the USA. If that's something that means a lot to you, which it does to me, but I'm just saying that if that's something for you, that means that much more to you, then maybe you're willing to pay $700 more or something, you know, for that. If you know, you are somebody who likes a knife that's made by one person, and you like the story and the story of the person, and knowing that one person, that's all you have to get a hold of is that one person. You know, if you have any issues or anything, maybe that means something to you. But not to everybody it does. You know, I know a lot of people it does. And sometimes, you know, if the price doesn't change that much, then maybe it might mean a little bit more to you. But sometimes people aren't just willing to say, like, yeah, that means a lot to me. It does. But it doesn't mean I'm going to sell the transmission of my car for it, right? It's still a knife. It's still a tool, so on and so forth. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, if you can tell. But, you know, and then also, you know, like that, it's quite a bit of price to pay for those little details, you know, like to say, yeah, my pocket knife, I want to add $700, you know, to make sure it's made by one person and in America. Now, there's other little details too, but let's go over some of the details of the knife internally. So if you look at this one's CTS XHP steel, titanium, milled titanium, beautifully done, nice milling on the inside, I'm saying. So get you good weight, nice thin grind behind the edge. So it's got great blade geometry. The ergos are fantastic, titanium hardware. And the Twosun is M390. Great blade geometry. Fantastic. This one's about 12 thousandths behind the edge. This one's about the same thing. I forget exactly what it is, but they're very similar. Very thin behind the edge. Milled titanium. Milled pockets for weight relief. Sorry if you didn't get that. Milled pockets for weight relief. This one has carbon fiber on this side. I could have pulled forward another Twosun, but it doesn't really matter which one I pull up. A lot of them are going to have these same qualities. Internal stop pins, if it will focus. Internal stop pins, if you can see that. So there's a track inside. There's a track inside there for the stop pins. This one has the same thing. Internal stop pins. So that's going to help add to the strength for side to side and good lockup. All right. So same thing on this one. Now let's look at a couple other little details. Now, this one has ceramic bearings on a racetrack. Now, a lot of companies have ceramic bearings, but they might not have that racetrack. So they have a washer that has a groove around the edge. It's basically a washer with a racetrack around it where the bearings can roll on it, which adds to this extremely smooth action and nice tight fitment. You know, like I've never had a Twosun that I couldn't just perfectly get centered. I've never had a Twosun that I couldn't just take apart and put back together like that. I mean, instantly. Like, it's so easy to take one of these things apart and put them back together. If you've ever taken one of these things apart, you know how good a quality they are. Because of, you know, it takes a lot of great fit and finish to take something apart and put it back together, and it just go right to true, like right to centered, no issues, no problems, no fumbling around. That's every Twosun for the most part that I've taken apart and put back together. Like they're just that good, and they use all big hardware, all T8 hardware. Now this one does have a T6 on the lock bar steel insert, which usually they use T8s on everything. And they do. It's just on the lock bar insert right here. But, you know, Koenig Arius definitely used the big hardware on their lock bar insert, which I think is fantastic. But there's just a lot to say about a knife done this well, you know, with its fit and finish and action. And they have so many models that, yeah, 50 of them or 100 of them might not be your style, but out of 300 knives, I guarantee one of them is right up your alley. And if you deny their quality, fit and finish, and like, check this out, if you tried a couple of their older models and you've made your decision, then you're basing that off of not good information, because their quality is getting better and better and better and better with every model. So like their upper 200s, I'm going to say even from like 110, 120 and up to 260 models, they're all done great. But still though, the higher you go, a little bit better quality. Like this is the 129. This is done like great. This is done amazingly. And they have knives in integrals. I mean, I got one right over here. They have great grinds. They have so many of the details that we're looking for in today's knives and today's quality. They really do. You can get full titanium frame locks that are milled, so they're nice and light. You can get all the nice milling done. The carbon fiber is done great with no voids. They use all big hardware. Their blade geometry is phenomenal. They're you know, they use always flat grinds. You rarely ever see them use a hollow. But their flat grinds are like the best in the knife market. Some of the best. This one's really good too. I do like this one. This one does have good blade geometry. Arguably, they're pretty similar. This one's probably not as good as this one, but that's okay. It's not that big of a difference to say like, oh, this one's better. But they're both fantastic. But yeah, and that means a lot, you know, with a knife, especially a knife you're going to use. Now, say you want a knife, right? You want a knife to use. A lot of people will buy this. They're not going to beat the heck out of it. But what if they do? They want to. I want a knife of this quality, of this fit and finish, with this geometry, with blah, 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 blah. And I want to use it. There you go. This is a great knife. Not saying this specific one, but Twosun makes the knives to where you can get that type of fit and finish action materials, so on and so forth, and use it without breaking your heart. You know, like I apt for people to use their Koenig Ariuses or whatever knife they have. Like, I love seeing a knife being used. It breaks my heart when I see a knife that just doesn't get used. You know, like, it's a tool. You know, I wouldn't buy a $3,000 chainsaw and then say, I'm never going to cut a piece of wood with it. No, man, that's where it shines. That's what it needs. That's what it wants. It wants to go through some wood. Same thing with a knife. But a lot of people won't do that. But then they'll knock, say, a knife at a lower price just based on the price. Now, I didn't take this apart, but I would imagine it's probably pretty similar. You know, I'm sure this thing goes back together just perfect. Nice centering, nice fit and finish. Now, there are going to be a couple details from Twosun that might bring the cost down a little bit. Like, say, their M390. Their M390, at least in the past, hasn't done that great. But they, you know, they are doing a little bit better, first of all. But besides that, let's say they're not, okay? Even though every company, I'm not going to say every, majority of companies dealing with M390 on a production level and high batches, or dealing with M390 in a production level, aren't doing that great. Now, some are doing better than others, but the majority of companies doing M390 are not doing that great. So it's not like Twosun's just, you know, the only one. But they are starting to do better, and just like most companies that begin to deal with M390, it takes them a little learning curve with it on, you know, increasing the performance that it's getting. Now, You are still getting decent cutting performance though from the M390, and if you look at it, the price you're paying, is less than S30V prices, and you're still getting the titanium, the fit to finish, the ceramic bearings on a racetrack, the reverse detent ramp. So it's got a reverse detent ramp that so you don't have that where it stops right there and you gotta push past it. It doesn't have that. Neither does this. This has a reverse detent ramp too. This one's actually not even as good as the Twosuns, but regardless, it doesn't really matter. Neither one of them, it's not that big of a deal. But just saying, all those little bells and whistles mean a lot. Now, going back to the M390, the M390 on this now, if you're buying it for less than S30V prices and you're getting M390, and even if it doesn't cut to the potential the M390 should, you're also not paying for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, like, say if I bought this knife, right, and it was an M390, which it's not, it's a CTS XHP. This better perform like M390. I'm paying the high price for it. So I'm paying the extreme price for it. So I expect extreme results. Now, when you're paying, say, I'm not going to say D2 prices, but let's say S30V prices. This I paid about $100 for. M390 titanium, beautiful carbon fiber, no voids, milling. The price, like, I think is what makes people think that it's going to be less. But you got to remember, we're making the value on that. Now, you can get them for more expensive on just regular Amazon or AliExpress or like White Mountain Knives, stuff like that. But if you bid on them, you can get them for a better price. And we're going to talk about that in just one second. But if I'm buying it for S30V prices, right, and I'm getting S35 or S30V cutting potential, if not better, I'm going to say better because I think it's better than S30V cutting potential. So, if you're getting that, plus you're getting the stain resistance of M390, I can't complain that much. And they're improving their M390. You got to remember, like, they recently, like, within the past, like, couple years started dealing with it. So, like I said, all companies seem like they need a little learning curve with M390 because it's not that easy to work with opposed to a lot of other steels. Now, their 14C28N is done great. I mean, I get great cutting performance out of their 14C, and other people with their cut results have also gotten amazing results from it. So it's not that they do bad quality steel. The M390 is just not that. I think their S90V2 doesn't get the best performance. Now, I'm not saying it's not improving because I feel like it is. Some of their older stuff might get a little bit worse performance than the new stuff. Anyways. But you're also not paying, $1,000 for it. So you're still getting the stain resistance that steel gives you, and then all the other little details that steel gives you. And it's not that it's just done crap. Like this M390, I haven't had an issue with it. So I'm just basing what I'm talking about right now off of other channels' cutting tests. Like, I haven't had an issue with it. I think it sharpens good. So it's hard to tell without doing an actual real cut test to say how many cuts you got before it started showing wear and stuff like that. And then there's also a lot of other details that come into play with what kind of edge did you put on it? What grit was it? What angle was it? There's a lot of things. How thick behind the edge is it? What's the geometry? And I'm not saying every one of those things matter, but, all those things do matter when doing a cut test, I think, a little bit. So let's get back to this one. Now, going towards the clips, the clip on the Twosun is better than the clip on the Arius. One, it sits deeper, it sits better. Two, it feels better in the hand, in my opinion. And this one, it doesn't work as good as this one. This is a great clip by Twosun. Now, Twosun has been known in the past to do not that great of clips. Their most recent clips are doing really good, though. And this clip, I like far better than this clip. I did hear that the newer models did change their clip a little bit. I heard they're better. I haven't tested it out, so I can't speak towards it. But I heard that they are a little bit better. But, this clip, though, works great. Now, Ergos, I think they're both great Ergos. it's hard to say which one's better. If I use this choil right here, maybe this one, but if I don't use the choil, then probably this one. It's hard to say. They're just a little different. This one's definitely a little bit bigger in the hand because of the swell right there. So, but this one has the swell right there as well. But the Koenig might be a little bit better for Ergos. Just a little bit. It's, yeah, the Koenig's probably just a little bit better for Ergos. But the clip's definitely a lot better on the Twosun, at least between these two models. So, but the things you are getting to this, and I'd like to know down below, because I feel like, so anybody in the community, like say if you don't like Twosun, that's fine. You don't have to like Twosun. If it like some of the models I don't like. Some of the models I think they look ugly. But some of them are really good. And just like a lot of models, right? Like just because I say I like the Parrot 2, does that mean I have to like all the other Spydercos? No. But if I like, you know, 10 models from Twosun, right, and I like them, now for somebody else that downplays their quality because of the price, this might, I mean, I don't want to make nobody upset, but in my opinion, you're basing, like, you're kind of a knife snob at that point, right? If you deny, I'm sorry if none of what I just said makes sense. I'm basically saying if you're denying the quality of what Twosun is, the fit, the finish, the action, the grinds, the cutting performance, like meaning like in the geometry, and all of that stuff, especially with their new models, right? I'm specifically talking about most of their new models, then you're in denial. You're in denial and you are very biased because it's very hard to say that Twosun isn't as good as a lot of the more expensive knives out there, like WE and Riat. I mean, even Koenig Arius. This thing, I'm sure a lot of this was done on a CNC machine. And a lot of this was done on a CNC machine. Yeah, there's a lot more hand fitting on this. But if this knife was not made in a shop by one guy in the United States, let's say Riat made this exact same knife, right? What would the price be? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the price is what it is because of a lot of factors. They're made in small batches. Price goes up. It's made by one guy. Price goes up. It's made in the USA. Price goes up. Which are all reasonable things of why a price goes up. But that doesn't exclude why this thing is so awesome. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that still, you know, that still makes this thing, I'm not going to say just as awesome, but very similar to the same awesomeness if those little details don't mean nothing to you. Now, I'm sure to a lot of people they do. So, and to me they do too. I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying for the people out there that are shying away from a Twosun for whatever reason, and I'm guessing it's because of the price. Because they would rather, there's a lot of people in the community that would way rather say, I don't care if literally it's the exact same knife. This knife's $300 and this knife is $150. The $300 knife is better, right? There's a lot of people in the community that are like that. And that's pathetic, right? I'm sorry. It's not that it's pathetic, but it's biased. Like you're biased over the price. You're biased because this price is more expensive than this price, so it must be better, even though they're both the exact same knife. There's something to what Twosun is doing. They're letting us make the market. And that, I think, is great. They're mostly sold on eBay where you bid on them. So you get to bid your price. Now, if it's a brand new model, it's going to go for a lot more expensive. I see some of them going for $300. And I don't think it's worth it. I don't. But obviously the person at the other end of that computer thinks it's that worth that. So buy it. Go all day. Same thing with this. I'm not saying this isn't worth $700, $800, or $2,000. I'm not saying any of that. I think this knife is fantastic, and I love the fact that Bill Koenig does it all by himself, you know, in small batches, especially in the United States. I love that. I think that's fantastic. But but I still find the beauty and the value in something, you know, that's done basically the same way, just by a team and in another country. You know, like I can't afford this. So the closest thing I can find maybe is, and I'm not saying just this, but is maybe that the similarities in another knife, right? If I want to get the fine fit, the finish, the blade geometry, the action, you know, the all the things, then Twosun is a good place to start. Now, Riet also makes great knives for an amazing quality, but they're a little bit more expensive. You're talking 2-3 times the price of one of these. Now, why? Are they a little bit better? Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes they are. There's some Twosuns that I like better than some Riets, though. I mean, that depends on, obviously, what it looks like and, you know, your style. There's a lot of factors. But, you know, for the most part, Riet, you know, does do a little bit better work. They are, you know, but their price shows for it. So the question is like, say the little details, the little fine details, are they worth $250 extra for you? Maybe not. Maybe they aren't. I mean, that's, you know, like, say this knife right here. I love this knife. The Riet Liangma Endeavor. Now, this has a lot of the same qualities as this too. Look at this. Internal stop pins. Milling on the inside, no milling on the outside, which I think still looks great. It has a lot of the same things. This is S35. This is M390. The blade geometry on this is nowhere near as good as this. This one doesn't give you a sharpening choil. It gives you a finger choil, but no sharpening choil. That's definitely, in my opinion, going to eventually be a problem. This one gives you a beautiful sharpening choil / finger choil. I mean, there's just... But this is going to be, because of the designer and its Riet, it's going to be 3-4 times or 3 times as much as this. Or, you know, at least double. I mean, I forget what the price of that is, but I think it's pretty expensive though. You know, $300. I think it's over 300. But either way though, that's not my point. My point is that the quality that Twosun is giving you is a lot like these other knives. The only difference is you're getting it for a far better price, and you know, you're not going to get the little details that you do get from these companies, like dealing with one person, you know, made in the USA, stuff like that. Which, like I said, if that's something that means that much, then go for it. I mean, that's amazing. I like I said, I find this knife to be absolutely amazing. I love this, and I felt very lucky. But because I can't afford one, I have to look toward the next best thing if I want this quality. If I want the milling, if I want the fit, the finish, if I want the blade geometry, if I want internal stop pins, you know, and all those little details, Twosun's a great company to go to. It really, really is. And like I said, people that are denying the quality of a Twosun are in denial. They're in denial and they're biased. They're very biased because it speaks for itself. It really does. It speaks for itself. Take one of these apart and put it back together. I guarantee it'll be one of the most easiest jobs you've ever done. Hands down. It's so simple to take one of these things apart and put it back together. It's insane. So I think I got my point across. I hope I did. Now, I'm not saying that this knife is not worth the price it is, and I'm not saying this knife is worth that price. I'm saying that the quality, the fit, the finish, and all the work done on a Twosun is very similar to the higher end knives. Now, obviously, this is done by one guy, so there are going to be a little bit more details that might appeal to you. Let's look at the lockup and the lock geometry. Both are fantastic. This normally uses big hardware on everything, but they are using the T6 right there. Now, I give them credit for using the big hardware on there, but they do use the T8s on everything usually, except for like on their overlays sometimes. Like say on this one, this has T6s just on this overlay, but once you take this off, it's all T8s. So, but yeah, there you guys go. I hope I got my point across without sounding like a dick. I'll, I don't know. Maybe I'll redo this so it sounds better. There you guys go. Love you guys. Peace.